What are your Father's Day plans?
We're going to the Ticats home opener. We got the Father's Day pack, which includes great seats and a Tim Hortons Field Rewards card, so he can get a gift while we're there.
That sounds like a great plan. How'd you get that?
Just go to ticats.ca/Father's Day for all the details.
From the Ticats Audio Network, this is Ticats Today with Steve Milton.
It's Thursday, June 13th. This is Ticats Today, and I'm Steve Milton. We're going to talk with middle linebacker Kyle Wilson about how he figures he and his two new linebacking teammates did in their first game together and how they want to evolve this week. We'll talk to head coach Scott Milanovich on the Saskatchewan defense and on their offense, led by Milanovich's former quarterback, Trevor Harris. And we'll continue our visits with members of the 1999 Tiger Cat Grey Cup champions. This time it's defensive linemen Mike Philbrick and Mike Campbell, who both played angry and full of steel and also were a ton of high-volume, sometimes X-rated, fun off the field. The Ticats had a very efficient practice today as they prepared for the visit of the Saskatchewan Roughriders in Sunday night's home opener, Tim Hortons Field. Milanovich liked the energy and the crispness on the field, and hopefully that translates to game day, as the Riders are feeling pretty good about themselves after beating the Elks 29-21 in Edmonton last weekend. They rallied behind Harris, a quarterback with whom the Ticats are all too familiar, and receiver Sean Baines Jr., who had 3 touchdowns in the game, and they outscored the home team 21-3 in the final quarter. Now, the Ticats are still trying to get an exact read on their own injury situation. Receiver Brendan O'Leary Orange missed practice today, so Hamilton native Tyler Turnowski was taking some snaps, and so was Desmond Patman. Both of them, though, are on the practice roster, and the game day roster won't be set until later in this week. Shutdown cornerback Jamal Peters, who'd been injured, did take reps, as he did yesterday, but Milanovich won't know if Peters will be ready to move back into the starting secondary again until later this week. Otherwise, the team seems mostly intact heading into Game 2, which Milanovich said earlier this week is the game which, on average, CFL teams should show the greatest week-over-week progress of any segment of the season. Now, middle linebacker Kyle Wilson feels that way about his linebacking core, which includes Ray Wilborn on the short side of the field and Desmond Talbert on the other side. Wilson had 5 tackles, but says he wants to improve on that and that the linebacking trio played fairly well considering this was their first real game together as a unit.
Oh, it definitely affects play. I mean, like, for instance, like, it's certain times, like, where a new guy will be afraid to ask a question. It's just, like, it could jeopardize, like, basically the whole defense. So stuff like that, like, just little things as far as, like, not wanting to ask questions or wanting to ask questions and just knowing the scheme of the defense, stuff like that, just all being connected together. Sometimes you can just look next to you and see a guy kind of unsure about, you know what I'm saying, where he may be or where he may fit and stuff like that. So I just take it upon myself sometimes, just like throw out reminders, you know, help guys out, and it'll just click for them like that. So it'll help.
Saskatchewan, fresh off that comeback road victory in Edmonton, is coached by Corey Mace. And some Hamilton fans might not remember that he was almost a Tiger Cat. The BC native, a defensive tackle, had been drafted by Winnipeg out of Wyoming, but made the Buffalo Bills as an undrafted free agent, played there from 2007 to 2009, and got in a few games as well. In the meantime, the Blue Bombers had traded his rights and a draft choice to the Tiger Cats in exchange for middle linebacker Zeke Marino. But he and the Tiger Cats could not agree on a contract, and without ever playing in Hamilton, Mace was traded to the Argos for Arlen Bruce III. Now, in 2010, the Argos traded him to Calgary, where, along with Bo Levi Mitchell, Mace eventually won 2 Grey Cups, one as a player and one as the defensive line coach. He won another cup 2 years ago as the defensive coordinator of the Argos before being named as Riders head coach for the season. Now, on Sunday, Mace will be trying to win his second straight game as a head coach to become the first Rider to do so in his head coaching debut since 2012, when Corey Chamblin did it. Now, tell me you're surprised that Chamblin also has a Hamilton connection. He was the Ticats defensive coordinator and defensive backs coach in 2012. Now here's Ticat receiver Stephen Dunbar Jr., who had a nice game with 5 catches in Calgary last Friday, on what he sees in the Saskatchewan defense.
Man, they play really hard, man. I got a lot of respect for them. They play hard. They hit hard. They coach well. And I'm excited to play them. You always want to play, you know, in games that, you know, teams that are coached well and players, you know, that play well and play hard and they put us to a test. So I got a lot of respect for their defense and their coordinator.
Rider quarterback Trevor Harris surpassed the career 30,000-yard mark last week and can move past Tom Burgess and Sam Etcheverry into 17th all-time with just 192 yards in passing against Hamilton, a team against whom he's traditionally had some very good success. In last week's 4 CFL games, the Ticats' James Butler was the only rusher to go over 100 yards. And while the reconfigured Riders mounted their comeback despite getting only 40 yards and 18 carries from their power back, A.J. Willett, Milanovich says defending the Rider offense will require a full 60 minutes of concentration.
I think they got a lot of emotion. It appears that they're playing a similar style of defense to what Corey ran last year in Toronto. Obviously, I know Trevor very well. He's going to get the ball out of his hands. He's going to be highly accurate. They've got a power running back that's elite. They've got an elite returner. So, we've got to have to play well. We're going to have to really worry about what we're doing and just improve on the things that we made mistakes on last week.
Off the field, the focus this weekend will be on, as we've mentioned all week, celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Ticats' 1999 Grey Cup Championship. More than 24 players and coaches from the last Hamilton team to capture the cup will be honored in a pregame ceremony. And one of those will be offensive tackle Dave Hack, whom we spoke with at length in Wednesday's Ticats Today. Hack and Milanovich go way back to the early to mid-1990s at the University of Maryland.
Yeah, Dave was he was a tackle for us at Maryland. Smart, very, very tough. Was kind of the last one to get his shove in. Nobody was gonna mess with Dave Hack. So when I was playing and Dave was playing, it was always good to have him on the backside there.
From there, we'll move into some more 1999 team discussions. This time, my long and sometimes very colorful chat this morning with the two outspoken Mikes, Mike Campbell, a.k.a. Junior, and Mike Philbrick, a.k.a. Brick, who were angry, physical forces on the Ticat defensive line together for years, including that 1999 Grey Cup championship. They were perfect representatives of Hamilton football then and now. But be forewarned, it can get a little spicy. Here are the three of us together in our cyberspace studio this morning. Well, I'm proud and honored and a bit scared about our next couple of guests here. Two old friends from from many, many Ticat teams, but we're speaking specifically of the 1999 team, which will be honored before the game, a home game on Sunday. 24, 25 of you guys will be back to be honored prior to the home opener on Sunday. To honor the 25th anniversary of, unfortunately for Ticat fans, the last time the Tiger Cats won the Grey Cup. So I'd like to introduce Mike Philbrick and Mike Campbell, and two Mikes. Now, neither of these guys came out of the womb as wallflowers. These guys are going to talk here. So, and again, for me, it may be like herding cats, but let's give it a go. And I think for the sake of convenience, Mike Philbrick will refer to you as by one of your nicknames, Brick, and Mike Campbell will refer to you as one of your nicknames, Junior or June. And Philbrick, why don't you take it away and say, how did Mike Campbell get that nickname?
Oh, you know what? That came with him from Toronto. We're going to have to tap Mike's galaxy brain in order to give us. I don't even know the answer to that question. Oh, are we allowed to swear? I don't know the answer to that question. How did you come by that, Jim?
So I can tell you, Mike Clemens and myself in 1989 were the only rookies to make the active list with the Argos. So Glenn Kalka, I played with Glenn Kalka, Rodney Harding, Gerald Bayless, Harold Holman, and I was the only rookie defensive lineman, so they called me Junior.
And that was the first year of the Sky Dome too, right?
89, yes, sir. Yeah, it was.
That's what it was. So,
so
what do you guys do? Sorry.
I was just going to say, I actually had 1 year. I was fortunate enough to have one and a half years. Our locker room was still at Exhibition Stadium before we moved in. So can tell you some other stories about that at another time.
Oh, yeah. Practicing on the parking lot and all of those kinds of things there. Right. I remember that. Okay. Just a quick rundown on what you guys are doing right now. Mike Philbrick, start with you.
Oh, yeah. Resolve Asset Management. I run a global asset management firm, and we've got a few things like return stacking and return stacked ETFs and adaptive asset allocation frameworks for ETFs and funds and hedge funds, stuff like that.
You're speaking to us from Grimsby, but that's not your normal everyday residence, right?
I'm visiting mom in Grimsby, and normally I'm located in the Cayman Islands and global headquarters there.
Mike Campbell, how about you? You were we went to actually played in the same high school league, although 20 some odd years apart. You played high school, I think, at Vanier, right? And
Yeah.
then went to Slippery Rock. And so, what are you up to now?
I'm in the facility management business. So I work for a private equity firm that manages facilities. So I manage facilities from Manitoba to the East Coast. So I have about 17 facilities that I manage. So I'm into that
Oh,
facility stuff, managing that.
a
Real
couple of
exciting stuff.
successful guys here. So maybe let's just jump right back to the 1999 Grey Cup. Let's talk about first of all the game itself, and then we're going to talk about your team and your defense, which we'll get to. It was pretty stunning, and I think people sometimes forget how stunning that defense was. So, what do you remember about the 1999 game, Brick?
I think that pretty much the game was in hand the whole game. Really, there was almost a game that was never in doubt. We were
Right.
extremely motivated from the heartbreaking loss the year before, losing on a field goal at the end of the game. And I do recall that, Calgary was suffering a couple of injuries. And, oh gosh, his name escapes me, the quarterback who's the head coach in Calgary.
Uh, Dave.
Yeah, Dave Dickinson.
Dickinson.
And
Yeah.
Dave was hurt. So Dave had a sore shoulder, and he was quite a warrior playing in the game, but we took every opportunity we could to just drive him into the ground and make him pay. And I remember, getting not a sack, but getting some hits on him late, and the grimaces were real. He was playing in some real pain. So, I don't think the Stamps were at their best. I think we would have beat them at their best anyway. But the game was really quite in control the whole way through, as I recall. And, the offense was firing on all cylinders. Darren with the great catch in the end zone. But I don't think they even had a first down until minutes into the final half, right? So they hadn't
Right.
even.
You're exactly right. 7 minutes into the final second quarter.
So the defense was on fuego. And we were ready. We were ready, and we were motivated by the previous year, and any year where you get to the big game and lose, or whenever you lose, you don't start the next season at that point. You got to go through the whole process: training camp, week 1, mid-season, week 18, the whole 9 yards, as it will. You have to start again at the beginning. And knowing that motivated us a lot. And I think Calgary was also talking about, getting their names in the books and having a repeat, which was not happening in our mindset. We had motivational stuff on our boards, like, what the game was worth in monetary terms. It doesn't mean a thing without the ring. And leaders like the junior and other guys who had been there and won before were critical in helping shape the team from, the 97 team. And I think it's critical to sort of, that game is sort of the gemstone. But at the end of the day, that team was forged, the defense of that team was forged in 97 when we spent 57 minutes of every game on the field. And I got to me, that's the crucible. That's the furnace that forged the steel of that defense, if you will. Putting it in Hamilton terms.
We're gonna talk about that 97 team because there was a lot of things involved in that. Mike wasn't there, but we'll talk to him about that. Mike Campbell, what do you remember about the Grey Cup? And Brick's memory is exactly right. It was, I think, the seventh or eighth minute of the second quarter before you guys allowed a point. I think you came out of the half 21. First down. Yeah, 21-0 at the half. What are your memories? I'm sort of speaking for you there, and I shouldn't be.
Wasn't on the field for that series. When we got the field. I should have stayed in the game, come to think of it. But we had a great game plan, like Philly said, right? We had a great game plan. They were what they wanted to do was try and establish the run on first down. And when they weren't able to do that, it's pretty easy to figure out what's going to happen next. So we got some pressure up the middle from Philly and myself, and also we started running some stunts with Joe Mumford on the other side. So we had a good game plan. Sudsy put us in a position to win. He was a very detailed orientated coach, and he held all of us to a high level of accountability. and we held each other all to a high level of accountability. And to be quite frank, like I'm a very poor loser, and so is Philbrick, and that was our mentality on that. Like I didn't want to give up an inch. I can remember that series when they got the first down. Like we almost got into a fight with each other because they got a first down, right? Like it's just we were that competitive. So it takes a full team, and having a linebacker like Kelvin Tiggle, prowling behind you, makes it. I'm not going to say easier for Mike and I, but it makes it easier for the game plan to be executed. And there was a lot of selfishless times where, not joking around, Philly and I had like 2,000 pounds on us, and other guys are running freely to make the tackles. But that's what it was made for, right? The defense was set up, that Sudsy put it, that Calvin was going to be the man. And I believe he won. Didn't he win Player of the Year that year? Or defense?
I was going to just mention that, Mike, that first of all, I think Sudsy used to call it the funnel. He used to funnel guys towards, including particularly from you two guys, but also from Joe and whoever else was playing inside. The funnel it so that Tiggle could, because he was such a good tackler, particularly between the hash marks, right? Well, that year, Joe Montford came within 0.5, one half of a sack of the all-time record for single season sacks, and he wasn't even the team nominee for most outstanding defense. Wasn't even the team second greatest sack season in the history of the CFL, and he's not even the team nominee for most outstanding defensive player, which you were correct in that was Kelvin Tiggle, and he won the league most outstanding defensive player, and it was 4 years in a row. Hamilton did that. I think ending in 2001, and Joe was the guy every time. That speaks to that defense, right? How good it was.
Not to mention the back end of the defense, right? You had Orlando Steinhauer. Some people might recognize his name. I don't know. What's that guy doing these days? I'm not sure.
I don't know. We'll find
Chris
out.
Schelling, Rob Hitchcock, Gerald Vaughn, Body by God. Yeah. Like there was nobody open, to be fair. So when the run was stopped and they went to throw the ball, there wasn't anybody open except on that one play where they took Mike out and they let Gerald Vaughn cover that guy. I'm just kidding.
You had some great linebackers in there too, as we mentioned, Tiggle, but Lamar McGriggs was around at the time, and then there was two or three other guys. So who else played across the front of the line on the defense with you? Who were your compatriots there besides
Jeff
Joe?
Cummins, Derek McCready.
Right.
And
who was playing backside end?
Was Tim Terry. So we had Alfonso. Remember Gonzalez Floyd, and so Gonzalez Floyd was there, and he got hurt and mid-season. So Tim Terry came in, and Tim is a stud. Make no mistake. So when it actually in the whole sort of mechanics of stopping the run and how those things are accomplished. When Tim Terry came in at weekend, he solidified that position in a way that was pretty spectacular. I mean, he was coming in from NFL cut, so he was in great shape, and he was healthy, and he just filled that slot very, very well, and was, I think, key in making that front pretty even more formidable than it had been in the past.
All right. Junior, I want to come back to something that Brick said earlier when he mentioned that the crucible of that great defense was formed in 1997. And I'll just remind younger viewers and listeners here, anybody under 35 probably doesn't know this, that in 1997, this team went 2-16. And they were not a factor. It was an embarrassment most of the time, at least the record was, and the offense did not do well. And as Mike was right, he mostly played all that time. Plus, there was smaller, there were smaller recruits then, not smaller players, but the roster size, and so there was all those practices as well. So the defensive guys were exhausted. But you're in Toronto. You were an all-star, and you're playing in Toronto in 1997, I think, and yet you chose to come to a team that was 2-16. Like as a free, why did you do? I mean, it seems to defy career logic. Can you sort of talk about that?
Well, I'll tell you what brought me really back was Don Southern, and knowing Philly was there, and a couple of other guys in Tiggle. So I knew the team wasn't far off. I'd watched the Grey Cup the year prior to that, and basically watched, I forget the Calgary running back. I think he had like 220 yards running the ball. And I was watching that game and I was just shaking my head going, what are they doing? And ironically enough, that year. So let me just go back real quick.
Sure.
So in 97, I think it's right, Mike. In 97, I was with the Ticats, right? And we were 2-15.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what happened, we were playing Edmonton. And at the very end of the game, Edmonton was beating us like 42-6. And Danny McManus was in there. So Danny McManus was playing quarterback for Edmonton. And he lined up at the quarterback spot where obviously he's going to be. And I looked at him and I said, Danny, are you going down? And he said, and he looked over at Ron Lancaster. And Ron Lancaster said, no, run the ball. And I said, oh, you want to do that, eh? So boom, there was a big brawl. And I hit Danny late. He went flying. Anyways, Lancaster takes him out of the game, puts in Cody Ledbetter. And Cody Ledbetter walks up like he just got off a horse from Texas. And I said, hey, rookie, you going down? And he said, hell no. And I said, oh, okay, here we go. I looked over at Philbrick and Tiggle and Donovan Wright. And basically it was a huge brawl. And Lancaster came over and I basically told him how I felt about him and his organization from one end of the field to the other and thought that was it. Well, in the spring of 98, guess who the new head coach was?
I'm going to ask you, that was going to be my follow-up question. And you're right. That was my mistake. You joined the team in 95. So what was that like when you run into Lancaster?
Yeah. So anyway,
well, I think Mike is not doing it justice. So we have a big brawl at the end of it. And it's just like no holds barred. Justin Ring was there too. Remember him as a rookie? His eyes were wide open.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah.
And funny, it was such a brouhaha. Winnipeg, we were playing the next week, and they came out and they're like, "We're kneeling it. We're kneeling it. We saw the film from last week. We're just kneeling it." But Mike, mother truckered Ron Lancaster for 60 yards down the field until he got to his locker room door and closed it.
So now you come in. He becomes the coach.
So that may have contributed to Mike not being at training camp.
So McCarthy calls me up that next spring after everybody's in there, and
that's Mike McCarthy, the general manager at the time, right?
And so he says to me, he says, June, he said, what'd you say to the old man? And I said, well, I said, bing, 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 this and that. And I was just disappointed that they already knew they were beating us, and to try and disrespect the Ticats and disrespect us, you're going to end up in a fight, whether it's on the field or in the parking lot. I don't care. And I'd still go over there right now and punch him in the head. But anyways, to make a long story short, he told me that that was it. And that was it. So I said, okay, tell him again how I feel. And I told McCarthy how I felt about him too. And I hung up the phone. So that year, Hamilton goes to the Grey Cup and everyone was like, oh, you shouldn't have been so hard on everybody. And I was like, fuck you too. Right? Or sorry, you can't say that.
They just did. So
anyways, Hamilton, they lose, right? Calgary ran the ball up their yin yang and that was it. So the next year, I was actually heading up to my friend's cottage, and it was about 2:00 in the morning, about 1:00 in the morning, and my phone rings. And I'm thinking, who the hell is that? So who do you think it is? It's Dennis McPhee. Hey, Junior, what are you doing? I'm like, sleeping like most other Nordic. He goes, I can't talk loud, but we're thinking maybe we can maybe bring you back. And I said, bring me back for what? I'm not interested. Click. And then he called me back the next day and said, hey, listen, the old man wants to talk to you, and he wants to make things be bygones or bygones. And I said, well, here's how you're going to start the first bygone. You owe me 10 grand from last year. So send that bygone over, and then I'll come down and talk to the old man.
Yeah, not that
Yeah.
not that you remember these things or anything
Yeah,
like that. Right? So now,
So let me just
the
finish
old.
real quick. So I
Sorry,
went back,
yeah.
So I went back. So I went to Hamilton, and I walked in the old Iverwin front office with the old nice wooden panel. And Ron was in his office, and he had about 10 cigarettes going. And we sat down and we shook hands. And he said something to me that I said to his mother at his funeral, and I always keep it. Is he said, never put your personal feelings in front of what the objective is of winning a championship. And he goes, you don't like me and I don't like you. And I'm not going to stand in the front of the way of our relationship and not having a chance to go back and win another championship. And that was a very powerful statement. I learned a lot. I still chokes me up a bit.
Yeah, I mean, you're calling him the old man, and the rest of us, of course, called him the little general. And I always said that inside that little general beat the heart of the enlisted man in a lot of ways, right?
He spent 24 years at the helm with his hand on the tiller, running teams as a player, and then probably another many more decades than that as a coach. So he'd been around the block. I think that's what earned him the old man moniker. It was a thing of respect.
Yeah,
he comes. I mean, it's,
if you will.
There's no doubt that was one of the turnarounds of this franchise. That, and then later when Bob Young bought the team, are probably the two major points probably in the last 30, 40 years, and off the field, those kinds of things. Can I just ask you a little bit about this? And we referred to both guys. There's a real coaching dynamic there. When you went 2-16, the coach of that team was Don Southern, and he got fired. And the next year they bring in Ron Lancaster, and of course the team starts winning. But Ron asked Sudsy to be his defensive coordinator. That seems almost, I don't know how Sudsy swallowed whatever pride that was about or what it was. We talked about it, but he said it's kind of the right thing. And I know it had to be hard to see, well, a year before we're 2-16, and now all of a sudden the 98 team is getting all of this recognition for winning, and you actually, I think, finished first that year, right? So what about that? I mean, what's that say about Sudsy?
Well, Sudsy was a man among men, and he echoed the same thing that Ron Lancaster said to Junior. And I think Sudsy's mistake in running the team was, maybe the offensive coordinator hiring we had Dunnigan. We were going to go places in 96. But,
then Dunny got hurt.
Dunny got hurt, and we had that, I forget the fella's name, but it was all about throwing the ball. Jenkins.
John Jenkins.
And so that while that can score some points.
Well, he didn't have the personnel. He didn't have the right personnel to run that offense.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons. That offense has some flaws in and of itself from the standpoint of the game is a three-dimensional game. It's offense, defense, and special teams. And special teams in the Canadian game are a full third of the game. And I think that Lancaster's no dummy. When he saw what Sudsy put together on the defense, he knew that he was a couple of puzzle pieces away from going back to the championship again. Sudsy knew that he had established a group of guys that was pretty spectacular and could do some things and was a piece or two away. So I think Don, as much as it might have been a little bit selfish in knowing that he had assembled this group of players and coaches on the defensive side, which was his darling. He was a defensive guy. If they scored 3 points, it was 3 points too many. And he saw the opportunity, and it's not like he didn't know Ron. And so the right thing to do was to get the championship done, just as the right thing to do was between Ron and Junior was to let bygones be bygones. And there's that old saying, the hardest steel is forged in the hottest furnace. And 97 forged a defense. I'm reminded of the old Beatles The Beatles got so good because they were playing concerts in Germany and they were playing 6 or 7 days a week for 4 hours a night.
The 10,000 hour.
10,000 hours.
10,000 hours.
So we spent 10,000 hours. I remember '97, Sudsy coming in. We're playing Toronto, and he says, if they can't score, they can't win. Our first 3 plays were extra points as a defense. They scored on our offense 3 times. And so we come back into the meeting room. I don't remember this, June, and Sudsy said, "Well, guys, I told you if we don't let them score, they can't win." I lied.
Now, both guys, there's going to be presence. I mean, both men are gone now. We lost them both, and I would assume that this weekend on Sunday, when you guys are introduced, the presence of both those guys will be felt.
Absolutely. And it's really a privilege to be part of that team, part of that coaching staff. Junior mentioned this at the outset. In that group of guys, the coaching was slightly different. The accountability within the locker room and the accountability to one another on, we would watch the tape, and we had watched so much tape by the time the meetings came. Like, we would literally take the tape box and say, "You see the tape?" We watched the tape. Coaching was a kind of I think, McPhee knew to sit back and just let the peer pressure really take hold. Because if someone missed an assignment or missed the deal, you were talking about a locker room, a defensive line locker room anyway, with Mike Campbell, played since '89. Myself, Montfort, a rising star. Like, just the accountability was off the scales. Like, you couldn't take a step with the wrong foot and not get called out by everybody.
Right.
The coach was the last person that you were worried about, because the intensity of the peer pressure to achieve was so high.
That's well spoken.
And so, that kind of accountability, and I see it today in teams. I watch a team and see their locker room and see their interviews and see how they interact in the field. You can see it a mile away when it's just not tolerated. And it's not the coaches that are reigning terror. There's a part of the coaches that are placing a facade and a sort of a tension, but that is right down through the ranks. And right. Sometimes those guys, the general has to stand up and he has to freaking put someone on the cross. And Mike and I were both put on the cross when we had done nothing wrong at times. No. But that was because everyone had to know that no one was untouchable, that all were accountable at all times for all things.
I'll give you a good Sudsy. Sudsy used to tell us this, and I can remember someone, I forget who it was. He was like, "What were you doing on that play?" And the player literally gave him, "I'll give you one of these looks." He went, and he opened up his mouth. He opened up his mouth, and Sudsy said, "Don't give me that bass look."
Yeah, he was. He's funny. He's one of the warmest, cruel guys I've ever met, or one of the cruelest, warm guys I've ever met. Yeah. I don't know how to put that. We stayed friends till, I think I spoke to him just a few days before his death, and one of those guys that maintained relationships, which I really liked. Let's go back to with you guys to 99 and there's 98 too, and I do tend to conflate them because they were both Grey Cup teams, a lot of the same players, and two other things that make me think about it, 98 and 99 together, is that Montreal both times thought they had you beaten in the Eastern Final. One time in Hamilton at Old Ivor Wynn, and the next year in Montreal, and we'll take that one in Montreal because it's one of your guys that turned the tide, and I mean a defensive player. The catch by Joe Higgins, to keep a touchdown drive
reception is what that is, because they did not bite on that fake at all. I forget who is the defensive back, the all-star, all-Canadian defensive back covering Higgins. Did not bite on
and
the
he had
fake.
It sniffed out.
Did not bite on the fake at all.
No.
Perfect throw, perfect catch. I think if you slow it down, you see the index finger of the defensive back actually touch the ball, and Higgins still comes up with the catch.
Were we on the field? Were we on the field for that, Mike, for the big team?
I think it was. I think it was Jumbo, right?
Yeah.
So you guys were on.
That was
Yeah,
the
Mike.
most horseshit play that I've ever seen in my life. Like that guy, if we didn't have Joe Higgins with his athletic ability
Yeah.
to go up there and get that ball, the three of us wouldn't be on this conversation right now. That guy went up and got it at all costs. That was a hell of a play, and only an athlete like that could make like that. Like that, Joe Higgins was a great athlete. I was really warm felt to see that. I remember just almost falling to our knees, Philly, going, "We're going to BC."
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And of course, BC. You bring that up. This year's Grey Cup's in BC, so there's a lot of people that believe in talismans and those kinds of things. That well, maybe this is they won it in BC before, and they made last time it was in BC they were in the at least in the Cup game, so there might be something there. But you guys had a sense of destiny, though, right, heading into that. And again, you've talked about it earlier, moving off of 98. I mean, but there's sort of a sense of destiny about that whole group because let's go back to 98 now. Now, I'll agree with you about that call, Junior, and I told Ron Lancaster this, I think, less than 3 days before he died. I said, we talked about it a lot. I said, Ron, that is still the worst call I've ever seen. On third and short to go for what he called at that time. It was called linebacker eligible or something like that. He called it, and he just laughed and he wouldn't give up on it. He said it worked, right, and we won the Grey Cup.
I will tell you, there was a couple of conversations I had with Roddy about that too, where it would be something unrelated. Mike, that's a bit of a late hit right there. And, whatever. I hit Tracy Ham, which used to be his quarterback, and put him out for a few weeks. And he's like, Mike, what do you think of there? And I'm like, was it called or wasn't it called? Because if I'm going to get in trouble for all the shit that I do that wasn't called, we're going to be having these meetings a lot. He just looked at me. He walked away and he's like, fair point. Like that's his way. Did it work? It worked.
Here's a good.
Okay.
Here's a good one. So. I don't know who I got into a fight with or what the game was, but I could see I think I got thrown out of a game, right? Or something happened. Anyways, I could see Lancaster. He's walking into the locker room, right? And he kind of looks at me and circles away, and then he hovers back again. And anyways, I'm on my way into the film room, and he walks by and he says, "Hey, Mike, can I talk to you for a sec?" And I said, sure. And he goes, "Hey, I just wanted to give you a heads up. We had to take off $500 off your check. It wasn't me. It was the CFL that wanted the money." And I looked at him, and he looked at me. He goes, "I'm sorry." And I was like, "Okay, coach, I'll let you off."
Okay, we're going to have to wrap this up very shortly here. But I want to, as I say, again, go back to 98 and memories on this, if you will. He's Lake Cher, and he only goes by one name, Ozzy. But again, Montreal thought that they had you beaten at Ivor Wynn Stadium. They had the lead, I think, and by 1 point. And you got the ball sort of just a few seconds left. Danny marched you into position. The wind is howling, and it's a different type of wind that we see at the current stadium, Tim Hortons Field, because the field is faced 90 degrees differently. And it was a swirling wind that, and I've often called Ozzy an amateur meteorologist because he knew things. 54-yard field goal, and I think Montreal was already celebrating in their heads. I really do. What do you recall about that Ozzy strikes? Did you think it was going to happen? What is
total confidence? Total confidence, misrepresented or not. Ozzy was a guy who always got the key thing. Like in so many ways, coaching decisions would be made where, we could get a field goal or go for it. And it's like, yeah, no, Ozzy will get this. It's fine. Let's do that. Let's get back on the field and score a touchdown later. I mean, he was just clutch, especially in clutch moments, right? Really clutch and clutch moments. I will say that Montreal did pay us that favor back in 2000. So, I'm that 2000 team should have been there too. But anyway, I had total confidence in Ozzy for myself.
Should have paid me the other $10,000. I would have come back in 2000.
Amen, brother. There's one commonality that we didn't get to those. We didn't win the cup in those 2 years. Junior wasn't there. I mean, it's obvious.
Oh, there we go. Some people say, and I was talking with Dave Hack the other day, and he said that is his favorite moment ever, anywhere in football was that Aussie field
Really?
goal ever.
Good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think part of it was that picture of the hometown kid, and that'd be Hitchcock coming off with that granite face of his that normally didn't move, that matinee good looks type thing, but just drenched in tears, running onto the field. It was something else. Let's just wrap this up by a number of your teammates are going to teammates from that year. I think 24, 25. Some coaches. Orlando, of course, will be here on the sidelines in the game. How's it going to feel this weekend?
You start, Philly.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be amazing. It's always just an incredible opportunity to revisit these Schelling points in your life. And as you get older, you realize how special the moments are, how special the group of men working to a goal like that is, and how rare it is to have that kind of camaraderie and focus and selflessness to a goal that creates memories that are indelible.
Junior?
Yeah. Just to add to those points, I love coming back to Hamilton. I had some of my best days there and the most fun I had there. I'm just thinking about Sudsy right now. I wish he was here, but he's not. So,
amen to that, brother.
Amen.
He'll be here in spirit. Yep. Listen, I want to thank you guys, and I want to thank you for 25 years ago too. And I will just tell our viewers and our listeners that you can imagine this was what it was like every single day with these two guys and other guys like that on the team. It made it a lot of fun to come to work, a little dangerous sometimes, and you had to have a thick skin. So, Mike Philbrick, Mike Campbell, we'll see you on Sunday, and the fans are going to have a lot to say to you then. And thanks for doing this, guys.
Awesome, Uncle Milt. Right. I love your new handle, Uncle Milt. That's awesome.
Campbell and Philbrick will both be here, of course, on Sunday for the game. For now, as always, thanks for watching and listening, and please tune in for Friday's episode when we'll review Day 3 of Ticat practice and spend 20 minutes or so with two more legendary Ticats who contributed big time to the 1999 Grey Cup victory, quarterback Danny McManus and kicker Paul Osbaldiston. This has been Ticats Today, and I'm Steve Milton.
This has been Ticats Today with Steve Milton. Catch it on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.